Joining me now is Illinois Congressman Mike Quigley, a Democratic member of the House Appropriations and Intelligence Committees, and a good friend to us. So welcome back to the broadcast, sir. How concerned are you for FBI personnel as they face these increased threats? And how do you think the fallout of the Mar-a-Lago search is impacting the Bureau, the staff, the morale, and all that?
Look, it's a great concern. Look, the president hasn't shown any reservations about putting other people's lives at risk if it helps him. Again, I was in the room on January 6th where it happened. And, I watched his speech and I said, well, he just set 10,000, 20,000 people on us. So the morale here is extraordinarily important, the work they do on an ongoing basis. And also, we have to reauthorize programs that keep this country safe, right? The FISA program. And now we're hearing that this will make it far more difficult to do that. That makes our whole country less safe, not just the FBI agents involved.
Yeah. So, again, the DOJ concerned over what could happen if the video of the search gets released. But I'm curious your concerns, the security risk, because if those faces are blurred, the identities of the agents were to be secured. And I'm not saying that we, rely on the Trump family to do that. But if it were to be done, would it then be okay to release this video? I mean, you might have heard my conversation with Michael Cohen just now. And it's not like you expect the FBI to go in there and be unprofessional. The likelihood is they were completely professional as they went in there and methodically went through boxes and went through items and saw exactly what they needed to take.
Look, I was a criminal defense attorney, full-time 10 years. I saw nothing less than professionalism on their part. Obviously, the concern here is their safety. I was told, I'd like to know if it's true, that they asked the Mar-a-Lago folks to turn the cameras off during this, and they refused. On one hand, this released with the images blurred, it will show that professionalism. It will work against the conspiracy theorists. It's not hard to work conspiracy theorists with the Trump extremists because their whole life rests on a grassy knoll. So I think there's a middle ground here. I am concerned about much of this information getting out, not just because for their safety, but because of issues related to sources and methods and how we keep our country safe through the intelligence community.
Well, in fact, as you're well aware, last week, the chairs of the Intel and Oversight Committee sent that letter to the Director of National Intelligence asking for a national security damage assessment of these documents that the FBI seized from Mar-a-Lago. Can you tell me where that stands? Will you ever get a look or at least an informational briefing because you're part of the Intel committee? You're a member.
Sure. I mean, this is the kind of thing that is asked for after, let's say, a horrible leak of national security information. And at that point in time, DNI Haynes would be asked for an assessment, a damage assessment of how severe this is. You're talking about a very grave damage to the national security of the United States is the language that's used when you're talking about top secret information. Do I believe we'll get that briefing? Yes. To what extent and to, who all will get that? I don't know if they'll have some limitations. There's a reason that some information is limited to who gets it in Congress. As I said, not everyone's on the Intelligence Committee. Sometimes when there's highly classified information that an individual member seeks, they have to get approval from the committee, and there's actually a vote. Sometimes they're turned down because they've already said they're going to release this information. Do I think I serve with people who would release classified information for political purposes? Yes.
Yeah, that's sobering and unfortunate. Let's move to what President Biden did this week, which was sign the Inflation Reduction Act into law. So what are the immediate impacts for Americans, and how important is it that Democrats get the message out on how this is going to help people?
Look, I think the Democrats are going all out to make that clear. Part of this is just the fact that, hey, this is a president who somewhat quietly has had a lot of political successes in Congress. We passed the rescue plan. We passed the largest infrastructure plan in my lifetime. We passed the first gun violence measures in decades, all the while unifying NATO and helping our Ukrainian allies. And now this, where we're going to reduce emissions by 40% by 2030, out-of-pocket Medicare prescription expenses limited to $2,000 per year, and we're going to negotiate for this. This is going to help everyday Americans reduce their energy costs, be healthier, fight climate change. It's not just a big political victory. It is the fact that we're actually coming to terms with the issues that our generation is concerned about. But quite honestly, 30 years from now, when someone's doing this show, they will be most angry about or happy about what we did or didn't do on climate change.
But here's something a number of Republicans have been trying to do is convince Americans that the money that's been allocated to the IRS in this bill allows the agency to now hire 87,000 new employees, and those new agents will audit middle-class taxpayers. Take a listen to this.
Is the IRS gearing up for war in our country? Is Nancy Pelosi trying to start a nuclear war in Asia? Is there an effort by the national security state to stoke violence in a civil war here at home?
Those IRS agents are designed to come after you. They're not designed to come after the billionaires and the big corporations. They're designed to come after small businesses and working families.
They're going to go after the mom and pop. They're going to go after the small business person, the independent contractor, the Uber driver, and they're going to focus on basically parts of the country that don't support what the regime is trying to do.
How do you cut through this fear-mongering and put the truth out there?
It's tough because some of it's complicated. I am the chairman of the subcommittee that funds the IRS. The Republicans cut funding to the IRS from 2010 to 2018. They lost about 22% of their staff. A lot of that's just answering questions that lower middle class and middle class Americans have about their taxes. More importantly, about 40% reduction took place in those IRS people who did the more serious, complicated audits. So that meant a 75% reduction in that time on the wealthiest Americans, a 50% reduction in audits on the wealthiest corporations. The facts are just the opposite of what they're saying. This will allow the IRS to audit the wealthiest corporations and Americans. And these aren't patriots. What they're auditing is people who are often tax cheats, who are creating about 2/3 of $1 trillion a year in a tax gap. And my attitude is, you know, if you love this country, one of the things you do is pay your fair share. You're certainly not a criminal who cheats on your taxes. And if you want to increase the military spending, reduce the tax gap. You want to address the deficit, you reduce the tax gap. You want to help people with prescription drugs or fight climate change. This is all in the same boat. We have tax system put in place. At the very least, we should fairly and equitably enforce the laws.
Congressman Mike Quigley, my friend, is good to talk with you. Thank you so much for your time on a Saturday.